My name is Linda Sparks, and I was on staff here at Canyon View Vineyard Church for 26 years. So in 1975, there was a small group of us, a home group actually, that met in our house, and we decided one Sunday to visit a church out on the Redlands, little Broadway temple, and I thought that it was just our small group that was going out there, and it turned out to be that all of us in our group had called a whole bunch of other people, and we, I don't know, maybe 75 people showed up at Broadway Temple and added to the 5 that were already there. And the pastor there, his name was Pastor Thacker, made the comment that he had asked God to send him a congregation, and he did it all one night. We grew there for about almost a year maybe, and outgrew that and bought the church at 1622 Glenwood. We stayed there, went through several pastors. Actually, we had our Pastor Thacker, of course, was our first one, and then Gordon Peterson came from Minneapolis, and every time we sought the Lord for who our pastor should be, at least one person would speak up and say, well, I just keep getting that our pastor is among us. So we had the school in '79, and Pastor Thacker just had to go back to California. We started seeking God again about who was supposed to be our pastor. We began to pray about what to do, and Lynn Green was home for a while from Youth with a Mission, and he said that he would spend a few months with us trying to help us find direction. And so it was during that time that we really started listening to, well, is our pastor among us? And Dan Cox also had some Youth with a Mission background, and of course grew up with Lynn. So when Lynn had to go back to England, Dan agreed to stay on in a teaching position, but he was going to keep his day job, and that was in '81 that he started just kind of filling in as our pastor. I believe it was in '83 that he actually said we had grown to the point that the church could afford to pay him, and so he, at that point in time, quit his day job and started being our pastor and letting us call him pastor. We had just a period of steady growth to where we were about 300 by the time that we realized we were going to have to find a bigger building. That's when we talked to Ray Cox about buying his building out at the end of North Avenue, and we remodeled that building. It was his Cox Motors building, and so that's when the Chrysler Cathedral, as we dubbed it, became the Vineyard. And we had become a Vineyard in 1987, just before we moved out to the end of North Avenue in '89. By '95, we were dying to have a youth ministry building, and we added a youth ministry building about that year. By this time, we were having 4 services, running probably between probably about 1,500 at that time. And that's when we felt like we were going to wear our pastor out, and if he had to do any more than 4 services in a weekend. So started seriously looking at a building program to buy a piece of property, which is the property that the church is on now. It took us, I think we moved out here, our first Sunday here was like July 30th, 2000. The way we grew, it was only a year before we needed to do all the additions. That we put that whole addition all around the church and around the perimeter of the church. We added the middle school in another phase 3, I think, was the chapel, and you know, it's just been a growing experience ever since Vineyard has been that church to the unchurched that we were trying to be from the very beginning.